recording right now. Welcome everybody to Online Presenter Special meeting tonight. This is our May edition of Speech-a-thon. We usually meet on Monday Eastern time, and today's Friday, and the Speech-a-thon sometime will change up different times. So today we've got some really a good mix of speeches, as we have an influx of new members, and at the same time with veteran members who want to speak. I'm going to rearrange things just a little bit to keep everybody on your toes. So go ahead and please mute yourself, as I have a number of co-hosts with me, and they will be helping me mute and unmute. I do have one must-have co-worker, helper, to make sure that we stay on time. If not, I will speak for 2 hours alone. With that, help me welcome my timer, Miss Roxanne, and let her show us how she's going to help us with our timing. Roxanne.
Okay. Hello, everybody. As to Roger's point, my job is going to be to keep us flowing on time, to which end I am going to be providing visual cues for our speakers. When they begin, you will see this background. At 5 minutes, with the exception of Elaine, you will see this. At 6 minutes, this. 7 minutes, you'll see the red. And at 7 minutes, 30 seconds, I will clap you off. That's what you're going to see. For Elaine, you will have your green at 8, your yellow at 9, and the red at 10. And again, you're only getting 30 more seconds before I clap you off.
Thank you, Roxanne, for volunteering last minute and being my wonderful helper. That's going to keep us to make sure that I don't scare off 20 people for talking too much. So here's what we're going to do. First, I'm rearranging the speaking order just a tad. And we're going to first have 3 speakers. And our first 3 evaluators going to evaluate our first 3 speakers. And then we'll come back to number 5, 6, and 7. Now, Monica, I would put her at the very end as number 6, just in case if she's able to make it. But if not, then we'll have 5 speakers. So first speaker is going to be Saga. He is going to be evaluated by Joy. Speaker number 2, Intranet. She'll be evaluated by Tiger. Speaker number 3, Brigitte. She will be evaluated by Nakenji. Then we'll have our evaluation 1, 2, and 3, and evaluation is going to be 2 to 3 minutes. You get the green at 2, yellow 2.5, red at 3. At 3.5, she'll be clapping and spinning and try to catch your attention. Then we'll go our second half. We'll start off with, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's fine. I'm sorry. I'm going to rewrite myself here. We will start the second half with Sarah and then Elaine. Sarah is going to be evaluated by Trisha. And then Elaine is being evaluated by Lou. All right, so are we all clear? If we are clear, then let me mute everybody except our first speaker, if he can unmute himself, as I tell you a little bit about his speech. He is working off of the Presentation Mastery Level 1, Mastering the Fundamentals, Evaluation and Feedback, Second Speech. The title of his speech is Adopt, Overcome, Improvise. Before he starts, I want to ask him, what were 1 or 2 things that this is a second speech. That means he have already given this speech once. He received some feedback. He had made some improvement. It's going to come back now, giving it the second time. Highlight for us, before you start, what are the 1 or 2 things that your last evaluator have highlighted on so that the rest of us can keep an eye for those things and see if you have improved on those areas?
Greetings, fellow online presenters. So my apologies, first of all, because I did not use the same speech as my first speech.
That's okay.
However, my first speech, the evaluator, Jim Barber, told me a few things. Out of that was to make sure the lighting is perfect while presenting the speech. And the second one was to perhaps use the gestures which covers my entire frame. So
All
I'm
right,
going
great.
to try to do that.
Excellent. And it's okay to use a separate speech, but those are 2 highlights that I want everybody to have in the back of your mind. How is his lighting? How is he using all of his speaking area and gestures? With that said, help me welcome Saga.
Before I got onto this virtual meeting, my wife said, "Listen, buddy, don't try to be funny, witty, or charming. Just be yourself." Well, now, that being said, Mr. Toastmaster, my fellow citizen of the world, let me introduce you to this funny, charming, witty person who wasn't able to be here today, so you're stuck with me. This dry, funny side of me, which my wife really hates, she said, "This funny side of you, you actually inherited from your mother while you were in childhood." Well, let me bring you back. Let me take you to my childhood memories. I grew up with my sisters, beautiful sisters. I had a lot of fun. They helped me to mold my character as I am today. One time, I still remember when my parents got really, really mad because my father's brand new trousers, brand new pants were ripped in a hole. Well, there are a lot of different accounts what actually happened on that day. However, since both of my sisters are not here, let me actually tell you what exactly happened. While I was playing army, I pulled all these clothes to pretend to be in a bunker. As I put all those clothes in front of me with my toy plastic gun, I wasn't able to see my enemies. So my sister gave me an idea to make a hole through that bunker. And she gave me scissors. So I saw an idea that she gave me was beautiful and very innovative. So I pulled the cloth and ripped that cloth out, which I wasn't aware that it was my father's pants or trousers. And through that hole, I was able to win my war. Well, suffice to say, I had a really tough time during that day or that day. I was in a dog room outside. But while growing up, my sister helped me to adapt the situation, mold my character, and become a person that who I am today. Few years passed in adolescence. I was a skinny person. My father thought I might get bullied, so he took me to the karate classes. On my first day of my karate classes, my karate teacher asked me to stand next to this beautiful, gorgeous girl. I looked at her and I was so mesmerized that I couldn't look outside of any other frame. I stared at her all the time. Do you remember during those days, teenage days, the fabulous days, when you like somebody, the time really feels like moving slow? That's what happened with me. As I was staring at her, my karate teacher got upset. He gave me a few warnings not to stare at her. But somehow, I still kept looking at her. After a few warnings, my karate teacher said, "Hey, step outside. Let me talk to you." As I stepped outside, he said, "Mr. Sagar, why are you staring at my daughter?" That shook me to my core. I felt that punch through my stomach, through my belly. I had no idea, no response at that time. With a shameful eyes, I looked down. I said, "Master, prior to starting this, you told us, look at your opponent and show no fear." I guess that's what I was doing. Well, he said, "Oh yeah, you think she is an opponent? Let's see who wins the fight, or let's see the fight." He had me in the round. As I was ready, I was excited because I wanted to show her I'm a good opponent. I'm a good karate kid. All my lessons were based on watching Karate Kid movie 10 times, watching Chuck Norris karate moves. As I was ready with my stand, well, within 2 seconds, I don't know what happened, but I was flat on the floor. That was the first day of my karate class. I don't want to tell you exactly what happened because I don't want you to lose your appetite. Well, suffice to say, for next 2 weeks, I was in a bad pain and I did not want to go back. My father said, "Listen, child, it is okay. It's always going to be there. You have to overcome the fear. You have to look forward. Keep moving forward." My father took me back to the karate classes. And let me tell you, my friends, those were the fabulous days, golden days that taught me how to defend myself, how to socialize, how to talk to people, even talk to a girl instead of staring at her. That girl became my best friend who helped me to get to the green belt. She told me how to improvise in a situation where I face or we face the challenges. So, friends, today I'm glad to tell you, in any difficult situation I find myself, I don't see difficulty, I see an opportunity, and I use those three words: adapt, overcome, improvise. So for you guys, I would recommend to use these words. Back to you, Sir Toastmaster.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Take a quick moment and you may want to send some notes to Zaga in terms of what you saw. And later on, we'll get a fuller feedback from our evaluator. And as we get ready for our next speaker, Intranet, Elaine, please take a look at your private chat real quick. Intranet is working off of the pathway system, engaging humor level 1, mastering fundamentals. And this one, very similar to our last speaker, is an evaluation and feedback, but the first speech. What she's going to do is give this speech first time, get the feedback, work on the speech, and come back later on. Now, in her twin island state of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, she said that we do experience different language styles, probably due to cultural differences, heritage, and so on. And so she's here to highlight to us the differences and probably the similarities in terms of language. So relax and enjoy. The title of her speech is, Can the Outside World Truly Understand the Trinidadian When They Speak? Help me welcome Intranet.
Good evening, my fellow Toastmasters. Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island state. However, Trinidad's economy is mostly run by oil and also small to large industries, whereas the Tobago's economy is through tourism. Although English language is a native tongue, Trinidad's dialect is different from Tobago's dialect. Thanks. Ever since I was a little girl, people have been knocking the Trinidadian dialect. They say we speak bad. They say our dialect looks inferior, sounds inferior. Bad English, that's a lie. If you ask a British student in a British school to stand up and conjugate the verb to go, they will stand up prim and proper and say, I go, you go, he, she, or it goes. But in Trinidad, we will say, I go, you go, and we go. In Trinidad, we don't say, I beg your pardon. I don't understand what you are saying. That's too long. We will say, eh? In Trinidad, they will say, I was thinking in my mind, and I hear the bad talking here. But you ever tried thinking with any other part of your body but your mind? Oh gosh, just yesterday I was speaking to him and today he is dead. Again, that's too long. We will say, is daddy dead? The mechanics are the best people for emphasis because we in Trinidad like to emphasize our words. I went to the mechanic yesterday with my vehicle. The air conditioner was not working. He told me, Miss, your compressor gone. And then in addition to say, don't worry, I will get a brand new second-hand compressor for you. In Trinidad, opposites is like nothing to us. For example, sweet and bad. If a young man see a girl walking down the street, he will say, girl, you're sweet too bad. But we understand what the person is saying. Do you think that's standard English? If you walk into a bar as any Trinidadian, and you get a beer, you say, boy, oh gosh, this beer cold like hell. When you hear that hell is cold, in Trinidad, we like to pluralize. You see Coke and you see Coca-Cola marked big on the bottle, but you're saying you want a Coke. You're saying this is mine and that is mine. For example, you say that shoe is mine and that shirt is mine. Children playing in the yard and they'll say, Mommy, look at ants. In Tobago, it is also unique. One-eyed man is king in blind man country. That is to say, there may be a group of us, or say like a group of homeless citizens. But out of that group, one person likes to talk plenty. And it occurs when, like this person truly knows what he or she is about. So if a club is formed, most likely they will vote him or her as the president, because the other followers are just like followers like sheep. So they'll vote him or her as the president because they feel that he or she knows. So that is when we use one-eye man is king in blind man country. Another phrase we like to use in Tobago is, when you see goat with a half chain, leave them alone. Why? A young man may be dating a young lady. The young lady said, I do not like to cook. Nevertheless, the young man still went ahead and married the person. Problems when they meet in the marriage. You don't expect that before the person told you the situation that they don't like, and now as soon as you're married, all of a sudden they change. So in that respect, we say, when you see goat with a half chain, leave them alone. In essence, we don't speak bad English. That's our culture. Back to you, Toastmaster Roger.
Thank you so very much. Well, I guess you've just given us some new lyrics to You Say Tomato and I Say Tomato. Maybe I'll go back and be able to pick out your speech and put some music to it, and let's see if we can have some fun with that. Now, one of the things that we like to make fun of our culture as being a Chinese American is that you probably have heard of this term Chinglish. Is that there are oftentimes in one sentence, there might be 3 English words and then 2 Chinese words and then 2 more and 3 more. And if you're not on your toes, you have no idea what we are talking about. And I'm just talking about between me and my wife. So thank you very much, Intranet, for giving us a little flavor of what's it like down where you are. And yes, one day I will be knocking at your door and saying hello down in the islands. I have to rearrange our speaking order just a little bit. For some members have let me know that because of other engagement, they have to leave a little early. So therefore, our speaker number 3 will be Elaine. And then we'll have our first round of evaluation. And then we'll come back for the second round. So our speaker number 3, Elaine, is working on the dynamic leadership level 5. This is demonstrating his expertise. The project is called Lead in Any Situation. Now, Elaine, as I have introduced her earlier, is our VP of membership. And she's almost completing this path. And this is level 5. She's very close. She's reflecting on her experience of leading a team of classmates for a stellar 50 years reunion event. And maybe one day we'll find ourselves having to do that. So what can we learn from her experience? So listen in, and here's Elaine with the Milestone Reunion Leader, High Tech, High Touch, High Treasure, with the speech title, Being a Reunion Leader, High Tech, High Touch, High Treasure. Elaine.
It was 2 years ago, in early May of 2018, that I found myself by default becoming the lead coordinator for my high school 50th reunion. Why did that happen? Well, it started off in the tech arena. One of the gals who I connected with on Facebook, one of the few high school friends I knew on Facebook, said, I think it's time to start a class of 69 SBHS Facebook group. I said, okay. And so then, amongst a few of us who had still stayed in touch, we started the talk. Who's caring about this? And so I volunteered. I said, well, I do that Zoom thing. I guess I could bring people together. And lo and behold, it turned out that by default, I ended up being the lead coordinator for the whole thing. Now, if I had a chance, I would do it all again. And I ask you, my fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and even replay viewers, how was your high school formative years? Was it good enough that you've been willing to go back to a high school reunion, or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how many years it's been since then? As it turns out, my class was pretty tight. There was about 200 people, about 160 or 70 are still alive now, but we've actually had fairly frequent reunions. But everybody knew the 50th was going to be a good deal, and I stepped up to the plate. So as I began reflections over about a year and about 15 months of planning, the actual event, and then the aftermath, because the reunion was actually last August, I've had lots of reflections on all the things I did and all the things that came together to make it a really stellar event. It was a stellar event. And it falls into these 3 categories. We focused on doing what we need to do in this high-tech world. We focused on our values, what we treasured, and we made the experiences along the way high touch. Now, one of my favorite quotes is by a woman whose name is flying out of my aging brain at the moment. Danielle Laporte, oh, that's it. And the quote is, the journey has to feel the way you want the destination to feel. And so that's something I live by, and in all the work I do and projects I get involved with, I'm always thinking, how do I want the end to feel? And let me grasp onto what that feeling is and not wait until the end to have it, but claim it for now. And with that, I began preparing. As I said, we're going to focus on 3 areas: high treasure, tech, and touch. And here's my team. 14 people came together to participate. Interestingly, some of them only showed up at the end and provided surprises that made the treasure and the high touch even more valuable, and I'll get on to that a little while ago. But why was I almost uniquely qualified to lead this team? Well, I had actually been the senior editor for the yearbook. You know, I was putting together that section with all the classmates, all the little blurbs about all of them, and, you know, doing the design of that whole section of the yearbook. So I found myself, I'm really curious. But as I began getting together with my team, we shared something in common, and that was we really did treasure our school. We never imagined, probably 50 years, you know, before, that when the event would actually come, we would be getting together with 60 of our classmates and seeing them again. So we also treasured our teachers and our school and the various activities that we were involved in together. For many of the people who you see pictured here, I was involved with them in a lot of different clubs and activities, from choir to marching band to honor society and plays and even more. So it was a pretty tight team. One very valuable thing when you're putting a team together, do you have people that not only have the energy and drive, but also some recent experience? So one of the members here was Carol, and Carol married a guy in the class the year before, the class of '68, and she went to their 50th reunion. So she had lots of perspectives on what worked. Now, as it turns out, our team had kind of a local contingent of about half the group, and then half were scattered around the US. So it was great that the local team could actually make the decisions early on about the venue. I was glad not to have to do any of that, but I was so pleased with the venue that was chosen, a DoubleTree Hilton just outside of Princeton, New Jersey. So these formative years locked within us what we treasured, and we decided to participate. But let me tell you, when you're working with a team of people who are in their late 60s, some are retired, some aren't, some are still working, and just like any group of people, they come with different temperaments and skill sets. So we had to work through that. But we treasured each other enough to work through the troubles, and with a little prodding on my part from time to time to get people to step up and volunteer, because I couldn't do everything, that's for sure. Anyway, be sure if you're ever working on a reunion, get clear on what you want people to experience and what are the values underlying and driving the whole thing. Do you want it to be excellent? I did. And that's why I spent a lot of time in this labor of love. So now for the next thing, I want to talk about high touch. We decided we were going to have basically everything at one venue, and it included a Friday night cocktail hour, a Saturday visit to our school, and that was a surprise because one of the guys in our class actually came up and got a bus for us. So one of my great surprises of the event was connecting with this woman in the picture at the bottom. She was someone I had not known through high school at all. And many of the people who attended the reunion made the conscious decision to go out of the way and meet people that they had never known in high school. That was just one of the elements of high touch. Lots of experiences, not only over the weekend, but lots and lots and lots of communication over many months, via email, via Facebook, via snail mail, via classmates, via Evite. And all in all, it came together with a good mix of people. On the evening of the event, people showed things. Oh, this is another day. Oh, this is when we went to the high school. Yeah, that was great. Try to do that if you can, if you're having a reunion. On the night of the event, we got together. I did receive laudatory remarks from everyone because I was such a stickler for detail. But lastly, what was most important was we did a lot of high-tech stuff. In fact, the tech stuff was probably the trickiest, where there were some troubles, where there were some temperaments, and I just had to keep, prodding people to help out and bust beyond what they thought their skill sets were, because once again, I couldn't do the whole thing, and we were essentially recreating a database that had been not updated in 20 years. Folks, I encourage you to get involved with a high school reunion. And don't be afraid to laugh as you go along with the process. Be surprised when people step up and offer things at the last minute, even like a 50th reunion yearbook. Have fun, attend your reunion. Back to you, Mr. Speechmaster.
Thank you, Elaine.
I forgot your name.
My name is Roger.
Hi, Roger.
Yes,
I hope she stopped timing.
I am your speech master. I
Anyway.
am your puppet master. I am everything there is to know. Yes, today I am your Toastmaster for the moment. And I want to ask my timer to come on up and tell us, how did our 3 speakers do so far?
Our 3 speakers all qualified. I'm very, very happy to say, won by the skin of her teeth. Check off the top of her headband. I think she grazed it. I think she grazed it sliding under. But they all qualified. Do you want a report of the actual times?
If you could go ahead and put the actual time into the chat box, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We won't be voting today, but that is a good exercise as we continue to make sure that we speak within the time being allowed, and no matter where we are, especially outside of Toastmasters, is that we would prefer that when our host asks us to tell us more, than our host going, hey, you need to get out of here. So this is a very good practice. We're going to launch into our first round of evaluation. Now, our first speaker, Sega, has to step out for a minute. So I'm going to reserve Joy for the moment because we want him to hear it directly from Joy. So I'll bring back Joy later. So we will have 2 evaluators right now for our speaker number 2 and number 3. So let's go first off on Intranet's speech. Evaluator Tiger, 2 to 3 minutes. All yours, Tiger.
Thank you, Mr. Speech-a-thon Master Roger. I remembered his name. See there, Elaine? I'm not quite as old as Elaine yet. Sorry. My 50 is coming up, Elaine. I'm with you. Antoinette, I really like the way you speak. You articulate your words. I'm speech impaired. So women that have accents for me are typically very difficult. I have absolutely no problem at all hearing what you say. Now, the way you say your words, yeah, it's a little bit off base, but now I know why, because where you're at, you guys use idioms and you use hot when it should be cold, and you have all kinds of fun. Introduction. I'm not sure exactly why you gave us that little background. When you said, ever since I was a little girl, that was your introduction, and that grabbed my attention. Ever since I was a little girl, and then you went on. I would have just appreciated that being your introduction, and the part that you did before that, you could have worked into your speech somewhere else while you were explaining the different examples. And I love the examples. As a matter of fact, in the middle, I was so entertained, I forgot to make notes, and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be evaluating this. This is too much fun. But there were some things you said, sweet to bad. I love that. Cold like hell. And gold with a half chain. And the thing about it is, not only did you give us these idioms, these languages that you use that don't really make sense if you think about them, but then you gave us specific examples. The gold with a half chain about the married couple and her not being a cook. What a great example. I appreciate your storytelling. The way that you articulate your words is good. The way you put your voice out there is good. There's a couple of things I would like to see you improve upon. Your conclusion was short and sweet. A little bit more, maybe just a little bit more meat at the end. When you say things that are funny, pause. You have a rhythm, but you need to change up your rhythm a little bit. When you say something's funny, and you said a lot of things that were funny, I was laughing the whole time. Stop and give us a chance to absorb that it was funny and let us laugh. If you pin somebody, you can see when they're laughing, and you can just stop and give them that chance to get it out so that they can enjoy, because you were going so fast through your examples that I was having a hard time processing all the fun. So just slow down occasionally, pause, let people laugh. And your introduction, just go right from the beginning. Just get their attention right away. I had a great time. Thank you, Antoinette.
Thank you, Tiger. Our next evaluator is Lou, giving us some feedback on Elaine's speech. Lou, all yours.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Toastmaster, or would it be Speech-a-thon master? Maybe in this case, Elaine, there you go. And especially Elaine, our Vice President of Membership, wonderful speech. Thank you for sharing something more about yourself. This is one thing I really enjoy about speeches from our members and guests, if they may be giving speeches, is when they share personal stories or things they've worked on, something that they can make use of, again, a personal experience, even though it may be a speech topic that may not more or less conform to that. Now, that was kind of a roundabout way to say, thank you for giving us a personal story to show us your leadership strengths, okay? Now, in terms of this speech, that being said, we are ready to hear something about, oh, what did Elaine work on? In this case, you told us it was about being a reunion leader. With any speech, opening strong, get us hooked in and keep us hooked in. Your opening, I believe it was something like it was 2 years ago, May 2018. Boy, Elaine, I know you so well that I know you could have made that even stronger. Something that, again, would have hooked us in and kept us in. Something like, picture it, May 2018. 50-year, you know, anything like that. I just got that reference because I was binge watching the Golden Girls earlier, so that kind of came to mind as an example. But something, again, very strong that will allow you to get us right in. Now, in terms of this speech, excellent use of a variety of tools. You had the pictures, you had the yearbook that you held up, you had a quote. Great use of kind of breaking things up so that it wasn't just a ongoing speech about how you develop this program, because that leads me to my next point is use stories as much as you can. I did hear you use a couple of things that really did make this more engaging than it otherwise could have been. In other words, you did talk about how you organized the event, you showed some pictures and had a couple of things about some of the people in there. I would have liked to have heard even more stories, personal experiences, something from high school where you had a great experience with one of your classmates that you then saw at the reunion. Maybe something funny that happened at the reunion, somebody spit their drink out on someone after they told a joke. Anything would have been nice to kind of break things up and keep us more engaged. Also, since this was a leadership speech, I would have liked to heard more about the strengths you used to help you with this project. As Vice President Membership, you are a strong leader, and I'm sure you drew upon some of those things. Heck, you drew upon your use of Zoom, your knowledge of Zoom in organizing this thing. And wasn't that, I'm sure you probably were one of the few people on the committee who probably knew about that, so that's wonderful. All in all, thank you so much for sharing, because it really does give us also a lot of great ideas on how to do such an event. My own reunion's coming up, not my 50th, but one fairly close. And I've always been a little scared to get involved with things like that for that reason. Oh my God, what do I do? Who do I talk to? What do I do? So thank you for providing us with some very helpful information, not just how everything went. All in all, wonderful speech. Thank you again for sharing with us something that's personal and about yourself. And I look forward to future speeches as well. Mr. Webb, Speech-a-thon Master.
Thank you, Lou. Now, Joy is ready, and I think Sega is ready to receive his feedback too. Sega, are you on? Hey, he is on. So Joy, all yours, 2 to 3 minutes.
Yes. Thank you, Saga, for your excellent story. It was almost like an icebreaker, helping us to learn more about you. What you excelled at was your eye contact. I mean, I would really like to know, how can you manage to look at the camera all the time when you are speaking? I have not experienced that before. And your pacing with the speech was fantastic, very calm and comfortable to listen. Then what you might want to work on are actually those two things that already the previous evaluator was commenting. one is about hand gestures. You were using hand gestures all the time now. And it's good because this is a training platform, and here we can exaggerate. But we recently had a workshop about using gestures, and we learned that it's good sometimes just to put your hands down, because they can also be disturbing if you all the time gesticulate. But there were a lot of very good gestures at times when you use some good visual things. But a lot of your gestures there were not really connection with what you were saying, like what I'm doing now. I mean, this hasn't anything to do with what I'm saying. It's just like using my hands to use them. The other thing was the lighting. It looked to me that there was an open door behind you, and a lot of light came from that. And that caused that most of the time your face was not totally clear, or it was at least as clear as the books on the bookshelves. So Roger is a very good example of this, that he has a picture that is not so clear. I don't know how he does it, but if there's too much happening on the background and your person are equally strong, it becomes a bit messy. And in this case, because the light was coming from the door opening, there were some vibrations on the side of your head some of the time. So close the door. That will help a lot with the lighting. In conclusion, I mean, it was a fantastic story. We learned to know you better. And all my comments were about the technicalities around you and using your gestures. And kudos to you for looking at the camera all the time. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Joy. Madam Timer, how did our evaluator do?
All 3 evaluators qualified.
Excellent. Details will be in the chat box. So now we're into our round 2 of speaker. We will first start off with Brigitte and being evaluated by Kinja. And then it will be Sarah and Trisha is going to give us some feedback on Sarah's speech. Both our next speakers will have some kind of share screen. So go ahead and get ready and go. You can start getting yourself ready as I give some introduction and background of what the next speech is about. Now, Brigitte is working from the engaging humor path, level 3, focusing on the positive. Now, she has been a Toastmaster since 2006, and she's been a business leader for 30+ years with extensive presentation experience. Now, in Toastmasters, she has used many of her speeches to determine what type of message resonates the most with an audience, with topics staying away from being business-oriented. Now, in this speech, she's going to share her mindset of staying positive in the face of a medical issue. Good hair days. Brigitte.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Have you ever gotten up, looked in the mirror, and said, I'm having a really bad hair day? Guys will typically put on a baseball cap. Women might wear hats, put a ponytail on, or put their hair into a bun. But the whole idea of a bad hair day came into perspective for me. Now, most of my life, my hair was actually fairly long, and I was very used to that. And even moving out to California, when I wasn't able to sit in the sun all the time, yeah, I still got highlights, and I really enjoyed this look. But when I hit the ultimate bad hair day, at that point, there are no pictures. Because it turns out that chemo and hair do not get along at all. So I didn't want to be reminded years later of what that looked like. let alone try to document that in photos. It was enough that I looked in the mirror every morning and kind of saw myself as a cue ball. I just did not want that look. And at home I wore scarves, but I didn't go out until I hit some decent hair days. And my decent hair days meant I actually found a wig. And that wig, if you go back to the first photo I showed you, was fairly close to what my natural hair looked like. It was about the same color. It was a little bit thicker. It was a little bit curlier, but I felt that I was recognizable. Now, interestingly, when you get a wig first, they have a lot of hair in the front so that you can actually get it trimmed to match what you want it to look like. And you don't want to do that all at once, because if you cut it too short, a wig is not going to grow back. So I actually went through 3 rounds with my hairstylist to get it just right. We had one cut to get the shape. We had another cut to make it shorter. And I thought that was fine until I went to a Toastmasters meeting, and I was public relations officer, the old term at the time. And our district governor was driving home in the car behind me, and he calls me on his cell while we were driving. He said, "That hair looks gorgeous on you, but you need to get it shorter," because I kept swinging it out of my face. So by the 3rd time, it was finally at the right length. Now, the thing about that is I had to figure out to keep the hair on my head. So that was really the most difficult piece of it, because it liked to move around. And I was on a meeting at work, and it took about an hour, and I didn't really realize that my hair had moved backwards by about 1 inch. So I don't know if the person that was actually in the meeting with me had noticed that, or he was just too nice to actually say anything. So who knows? But after a while, I went through chemo, I went through radiation, and the nurses were right that basically it started growing back very quickly. Well, somewhat quickly. And it was growing to the point where it was about 1 inch long, and I couldn't keep the wig on my head anymore at all. So at that point, it was time to come out with the new hair. And I hadn't really told anybody at work about what I was going through. They just knew I had a medical procedure. And I told them, well, you know, I've had the same hair since I was 5. I think it's about time I tried something shorter, et cetera, et cetera. And I brainstormed with my best friend, Kathy, like, what was I actually going to say? So she basically said, you know, I've got it. We're going to go to Vegas, and you're going to come back and say, you know, I wish I could tell you the story. It's so funny, but, you know, it happened in Vegas, baby. So we had to go to Vegas to make that story true. And that ended up looking a little bit different, just a little bit. Now, the first thing I did before going out on the strip, I felt a little vulnerable. So I went to my favorite store, Betsy Johnson, and I bought this dress. And then we went out on the strip and decided to document the fact that I had come out with this new hair. And basically, these 2 guys walked by while my friend Kathy was taking the photo. And one of them apparently said, "Ooh, she's hot." And Kathy just said, "Yeah, it is." And she snapped the picture. And I can't even tell you how good that made me feel, because I had so much invested in my hair being long. So I just didn't really know how else to react. And then I get back to work and everybody's saying, well, what happened? Did you have a bad breakup? Or what am I going to say? My hair broke up with me? So I just kind of shook my head. But I literally went to people's offices to meet them, because I figured otherwise they wouldn't recognize me. Well, after that, it started to grow. And this is actually a photo that was taken at a Toastmasters event. And I just come back from Hawaii. And as you can see, it was long enough for me to start playing with accessories again, because I felt it was too short to actually put into a ponytail. So in Hawaii, you wear flower. Apparently on your right side, it means you're single. On the left, it means you're taken. And I bought a bunch of flower clips coming back. And for several years, it was actually a symbol. It was a celebratory symbol of me having come through the whole thing. And people started commenting when I didn't wear a flower. I had all different kinds of shapes and sizes, etc. And it made me feel really good. Well, after that, my hair grew a little bit longer. And then I got into ballroom dancing. And the thing about ballroom is they have very elaborate hairstyles. And when you spray your hair down for the competition floor, it turns a lot darker. So the hair that you're seeing on screen turned into a dark brown. Well, the first thing I did was go red. It was actually my dance instructor's idea. And he said, well, either go platinum blonde or red. And I said, well, I'll take the red. So he started calling it Becoming Ariel. And when I was at business conferences with this color hair, in Vegas again, a little girl came up to me while I was on the way to the conference center and said, whispered to her mother, is that really Ariel? So her mother started laughing and came up to me and said, yeah, what her daughter had told me. So I kind of bent down and talked with her a little while. And she talked to me as if I was Ariel. You're out on land right now. Isn't that cool? But then this was a great hair for ballroom. I no longer had bangs. I had let it grown out. And ballroom dancing has some very elaborate hairstyles. So everything is kind of slicked back and sprayed down with a lot of hairspray. So it just made me feel really good that I had reached that. And you can see my hair now. It's a little bit shorter because I actually had heart surgery. And we had my hair in braids so it wouldn't be too much. And apparently the body prioritizes your internal organs, not your hair, skin, and nails. So this is why my hair looks the way it does today, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Now to round out our day and our speech-a-thon is Sarah. Sarah joined Toastmasters in 2012 and had earned her DTM earlier this year. Now she works as a program director at Wharton Executive Education. She's going to give us a speech today on Project 1 in Level 2 of her Effective Coaching Path. The title of her speech is Leaders in a Crisis. Leaders in a Crisis. Sarah.
The best test for whether a leader is exceptional is how they handle a crisis. While the current COVID-19 crisis is causing a lot of disruptions in almost every perspective of our lives, it also provides us a perfect opportunity to observe leaders from different industry, organizations, countries. And people is seeking good leaders to lead us get through this dark time. Where I'm working at Wharton Business School, I've attended so many seminars and webinars and sharing sessions about good examples of leaders in a crisis. I would like to share 3 main observations with you all today. I plan to use the first 5 minutes of my speech to talk. And if you have any questions for me, please enter it through the chat box. And I will take the last 2 minutes of my speech to answer some of the questions. Now, if we look at the character of a good leader in crisis, the first and the most important one is to choose when and how to share information. You would like to communicate it in transparency. Provide your people with the information that they need to know. You don't want to wait for too long, because in that vault, people will fill in their head a lot of different imagination and rumors. To communicate the right information takes courage. And you need to be honest about what are the facts that you do know and what are the uncertainties that you all bear. The second characteristics of a strong leader in a crisis is empathy. It is that emotional intelligence that leaders can use to sense the emotions in the organization and in the people around them. Sigal Bassett, a Wharton professor, a world expert on research of emotional intelligence, put it this way. Much of the leadership involved is contingent people with the right emotion. And during crisis, hope is so much more effective than fear in creating resilience in your people. So I'm actually going to show you a video clip of a perfect example. The president of CEO of Marriott, he is giving a speech to his group, and he demonstrated the most important thing that we talk about.
I will mark my 8th anniversary as CEO, a position I accepted on the heels of 2 legends in hospitality. As a leader, I've experienced so many wonderful highs and a good number of challenging lows. I can tell you that I have never had a more difficult moment than this one. There is simply nothing worse than telling highly valued associates, people who are the very heart of this company, that their roles are being impacted by events completely outside of their control. I've never been more determined to see us through than I am at this moment. While it's impossible to know how long this crisis will last, I know we as a global community will come through the other side, and that when we do, our guests will be eager to travel this beautiful world again. When that great day comes, we will be there to welcome them with the warmth and care we are known for the world over. As I close, I encourage you to please take care of yourself, your friends and family, and the community around you. I wish you good health and a sense of optimism. Together, we can and we will overcome this, and we'll thrive once again. Thank you, and be well.
As you see in his speech, he's communicating a very difficult message, but he's also communicating a sense of optimism, and him and his people under his leadership will go through this crisis. The last characteristic of successful leaders I'm going to share with you today is one that's going to stay. It is important for people to lead this way even after the crisis. That is to lead with a purpose. With almost a lot of the people that we know are working from home. It's almost impossible to lead people by observing how many hours they spent in the office. And you need to create a culture of trust, of people rally around a purpose that they're going to deliver in order to be successful. So that is a leadership quality that good leader should demonstrate, not only in this crisis, but for the time to come. And with that, I conclude the speech part of my speech today. And as I can see in the chat, there's not that many questions. So I will end my speech with a question for you all. When you think about people that you work with, and when you think about people that you have influence on, what kind of a leader do you want to be? What kind of qualities will you demonstrate in this crisis? Right now is a good time to act and to make impact on people around you. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sarah. 2 very different speech, but let's see what our evaluator thinks and what can we glean from it, learning some strengths and weaknesses from this last 2 performance. Giving us some feedback on Bridget's speech is Nkenji. Nkenji, 2 to 3 minutes, all yours.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Bridget, I loved it. Good hair day. What I loved about it is that you shared a personal story. And of course, as we know, personal stories really get a lot of attention. So it was great to hear your personal story. I also find you very courageous. This is a very courageous story to convey. And of course, it gripped me immediately. I also like that you asked the question of the audience. So the minute you did that, I automatically leaned into you. So that was a very good technique that you used. What I would like to see you work on, though, is a bit of the vocal variety. Your voice seemed more flat. I wanted you to express when the guy said you were hot, like, yeah, you know that. So I wanted to hear something more in your voice. So the vocal variety is something I'd like for you to work on. I also would like to see more of you. Unfortunately, at this time, the screen share took up everything, so I wasn't able to see your gestures. I wasn't able to look into your eyes and really see some of the things that I felt you were feeling. So I kind of imposed myself on you, but I figured that's the way it looked. But all in all, thank you for sharing your personal story. Awesome. You're brave, you're bold, you're courageous. I wish you the best. Kudos to you.
And yes, I am hot. Thank you very much. Now we move over to our last evaluation from Trisha. Trisha, tell us what you saw from Sarah's speech, and let's see what else we can help. What else can we learn from your evaluation? All yours, Trisha.
Okay, good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Sarah, you did a great job. You had great eye contact, good information. The background was not distracting. A lot of factual information. You used a lot of different kind of techniques. You gave information, you gave explanation, and then you backed it up with the video, and then you did an evaluation of the speaker in the video. So you had a lot of context there. The one thing that I had a question about is you brought up 3 tips for like evaluating how good a leader is. Yeah, Trump would have been a good one to evaluate on that, sorry. When and how to communicate, and apathy and purpose. So I was a little confused with the word of apathy because I was thinking maybe compassionate, empathetic might have been more appropriate, because apathy is more of like lack of interest or enthusiasm and concern. So maybe my context is if you could clarify that. I liked how you used this like a Q&A session. So you presented, you used different methods of giving us the information, and then you said, I'm going to do this and then for the first 5 minutes, and then give everybody a chance to ask questions in the chat box, etc., which would clarify information even more. So that, I thought that was a good method. The one thing I did see that since we're looking at how we present and how many gestures we use and eye contact and the audience was all engaged, I didn't see any gestures. Your tone was good and clear, so awesome professional presentation, but the tone was probably what I'm using right now, just kind of like going through the information. So using a variety maybe more. That's just my observation. So overall, good information. I learned something. I liked all the differences that you provided and how you presented that, and everything else was excellent. So thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you, Trisha. Madam Timer, how did our last 2 speaker do and our 2 evaluator?
Both speakers qualified. I'm happy to report. We had one evaluator not make the minimum time, 1 minute, 25 seconds. Just 5 more seconds to hit the deviation.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, fully.
And that would be Trisha who qualified.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, and thank you. Let's give a hand to all of our speakers and evaluator. 5 very different speeches, very different style and topic. I want to just cover 3 things really quick, then we'll officially close the meeting, and any one of you can stick around. We can chit chat just a bit. The three things from a general evaluation standpoint. Number one, when it comes to online speaking, think about logistics. And you probably have seen it happening today, and you can watch the replay. If you know that you are next in line to speak and you can stay quiet behind the scene, well, click on the unmute button first before the last speaker finish. So now you don't have a gap, because even though you might have clicked the button and the machine that says that you are unmuted, but actually behind the scene, your voice is not coming across. So an extra second or two. So those are things that get ready so that we can dive right into and not lose any momentum in that regard. Number two, a number of you use personal stories, which is great. But when it comes to storytelling, I will speak for myself. I tend to give a whole lot more data than I need to. I want to build it up from the beginning all the way to the end when I'm really just making this one point. So what I would challenge all of you storytellers is that pick out the part that really support your point, and maybe even reserve something in your back pocket so when people come after you and say, hey, tell me more about X, Y, and Z, hey, you've got something to pull out. Number three, the use of surprise. And I want to give my heads off to Brigitte in terms of this moment of surprise. Well, her surprise was bad hair day. How many of you guessed that she was going to talk about cancer or chemo? Now, to me, that was a surprise, because I was, in my mind, I have my own stereotype. When it says bad hair day, okay, my thought is going one direction. As soon as she review part of that story, aha, there's that surprise. So I challenge all of you to maybe play around with your titles in your next couple of speeches. I understand a number of us, and I'm going to pick on Sarah, being in the education realm. I've spent 8 years in the educational world too. We tend to be much more academic, and we want to tell you what we're going to tell you, and then we're going to tell it, and then we'll tell you what I told you, so that the element of surprise is missing in that storytelling. Great if it's a corporate presentation, if it's an educational conference, great. But in other situations, you may want to toy with it. So use this platform as a way to play with it. And maybe after you try it and if you don't like it, fine, then don't use it and throw that away. How can you set the audience up right from the get-go, even before you open your mouth? That is your title. So from your title, can you put them in a place and maybe give them a little surprise later on? So those are my 3 points for today's meeting. And I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to give it to Roseanne to give a last comment before I close the official part of our meeting.
Just quickly, I'm sorry, Roger. I do want to correct my report. We did have a speaker disqualified. I did clap off Birgit.
Okay, Birgit went over a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So
45-second deviation. She was at
okay, great. So if you need the data,
it shouldn't have been 5 to 7 minutes. It should have been 6 to 8, actually, because I kind of cut out my actual conclusion.
All right. So once again, thank you very much.
6 to 8, we're good.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to turn off the recording.